All right, I'm going to say, but I think she will too, that school choice and education freedom is the best way to stop the Democrats' war on kids, which they are waging relentlessly. Here to talk about it is Betsy DeVos, former education secretary and author of the new book, Hostages No More, The Fight for Education Freedom and the Future of the American Child. That book is out tomorrow. We're honored you come on set with us, Betsy. It's great to see you.
It's great to see you, Larry. Great to be here. Thanks.
So the Bidens are doing just about everything they can do against kids. It's one way to look at it. It's what my view. Your point is that education freedom is the best answer. I don't want to oversimplify, but I think that's what you're saying.
Absolutely. For years, the school unions have had total control of the system. They and all their allies have continued to control kids' futures. And parents, the last couple of years, families across the country have seen how the last 2 years have laid bare the failings of a system that for many years before hasn't been working for a lot of families anyway. But take all of the lengthy lockdowns, the mask mandates, the in-school, out-of-school, distance learning that wasn't so great, seeing firsthand what their kids were or weren't learning and being horrified by some of what they were learning, whether it was CRT or sexualization of very young children. And so all of these problems have come right into the front lines of people's homes, and parents are upset, rightfully so. And now is the prime opportunity to really break that school union monopoly and stranglehold on families and give families the freedom to find the right fit and the right place for their kids' educations.
Were you surprised? I mean, I know there's a long litany of mistakes by the Bidens, but were you surprised that they went so far as to essentially label parents domestic terrorists, boards of education more important, teachers union more important, everybody's more important than the parents? Now, the kids ultimately, but in this case, it was war against the parents as well as the kids.
I know. It's just inconceivable when parents are rightfully upset with what they're hearing. Their kids are learning in school. They want to know, they want to find out what's going on, and they're told that they cannot speak up. And if they do speak up, they have the threat of the FBI coming investigating, or the National Guard even. I mean, it is just inconceivable to me. The attention and the focus is misplaced. It's placed on adults and adult issues, adults that have controlled kids' futures, and now parents are rightfully rising up and saying no more. Kids should not be held hostage to this system any longer.
And your point about education freedom or school choice, are these kids better off staying out of, quote, government schools? Are they just better off staying away from that?
Well, what would be the ideal situation is that every family have the resources that are already spent on their children attached to them metaphorically. I use the metaphor of the backpack. They go to school with the stuff they need every day. Metaphorically attach the nearly $15,000 on average we spend on kids' K-12 education to that child and let the parents decide. If their assigned school is working for them, that's great. But if it's not, they can go to a school of their choice, or they could start a school. Many families did during the last 2 years.
Do you think it's possible, I mean, to have an education, particularly a young kid's education, without racism, without sex, without gender? I mean, I know it's a cliche, but reading, writing, arithmetic is not a bad place to start. I never really hear them talking about that, except I hear them talking about this other stuff, teaching this 16-19 business, which is really baloney historically. I mean, could we not have this and just have ordinary, good, classical education like we used to have in this country?
Absolutely. And kids have been harmed the last 2 years in particular, but they've been harmed many years before that. Look, before the pandemic, the results, the achievement levels for kids across the country were dismal. I mean, we aren't even in the top 10 of any of our peers around the world, any of our competitors around the world. 37th in math. That was before the pandemic.
Not for lack of money. Not for lack of public funding.
We spend the most of any country, save 2 tiny nation states, and we're getting a third more per child than most of the rest of the world, and we're not getting the results. And as a result, individual kids their futures are being failed because of this. So really, the solution is change the paradigm completely. put families in charge, and then see the creativity that will result when that happens. Because we've been living within the same kind of framework for 175 years. It was a model that was intended to turn out students that thought the same way and did the same things, an industrial factory model. Well, we need a lot more opportunity for kids to explore well beyond the factory industrial model and prepare them for the opportunities today.
This was the Horace Mann model. This was the John Dewey model.
Exactly.
This was not a parent's model. It really wasn't a kid's model either, what you're saying.
Exactly.
Didn't help anybody. Didn't help anybody.
No. And the title to my book, Hostages No More, is a direct reference to a Horace Mann quote from 175 years ago where he said, "Educators are entitled to look upon parents as having given hostages to our cause."
If I hold it up long enough, I think they'll take a picture. Oh, there it is. I knew they would. Betsy DeVos, old friend. Last one. Joe Biden wants to forgive all student loans. What you think about that, former education secretary?
Horrible policy, horrible idea. Number one, it's illegal. He can't do it. Number two, it's unfair. 2 out of 3 Americans don't go to higher college or higher education. And students who've paid off their debt faithfully, how fair is that to them? Or families who have saved for their students, or vets who have earned the GI Bill. There's nothing about just forgiving student debt that makes sense or is fair. It's nothing but a political attempt for a political payoff, and it doesn't solve any problems either. So you wave it away now, then what? You haven't changed anything. Next year, more students are going to go to college and take out student debt.
Right.
So it's a horrible idea, and policymakers need to go back to the drawing board and look at where things went wrong, which arguably was in 2010 when they federalized all student lending.
There it is. I was just going to go there. I know it's unoriginal because you and I talked about this, but I'm just saying that was a big mistake. Why not?
Absolutely.
Why not private loans with some creditworthiness attached to it, and so forth and so on?
Absolutely. Lots of policy solutions there.
Hostage no more. I'm going to put it up one more time so you can get a good look at it. Betsy DeVos, hostage no more. Horace Mann quote. Is that what you're saying? God, he's revered, or at least the Horace Mann School is revered. But that's another segment. We'll leave that alone. The fight for education, freedom, and the future of the American child. My friend Betsy DeVos. Thank you, Betsy.
Thanks so much, Larry.